Thank you. Everybody helped us put this together. But I have an SOS from Jo Flowers. She needs a 2-week or 1-month home. Desperate tomorrow. She does not have a phone. I'm her contact, her transportation. So please see me after, or let's see, call me. I'm in the directory. Thanks. So now,
Okay. Our Sophia sisters have been working on this vision for the last month. And my name is Crystal Shane.
Nancy Ness.
And Nancy and I, are going to be sharing our results of what we've come up with. We used a process called the process of visioning. And I'm going to ask a question, and then Nancy's going to give the answer. And this is what we have come up with. What is our highest purpose?
To be an evolving spiritual community, created as well as expressed through prayer, meditation, contemplation, and reflection. When we sit together in silent prayer, we create a space for spirit to be present. When we listen to the word, we not only receive insight into spirit's saving work, but we also experience a mutual bond, the mystery of community that's grounded in spirit. We have an acceptance of responsibilities as stewards for Mother Earth through connective consciousness to all creation. We did not inherit her, we borrowed her from our children. St. Francis, the patron saint of animals and the environment, is the guiding inspiration of our church. His prayer for peace is the foundation of what we believe.
What is our role, our part in the evolving spiritual community?
We have been using Pure Spirit Circling for, how many years? 14 or 15 years. And that is found on the web, but we are urging all committees to follow this format. And we have found it the most respectful, productive format that we've ever found for any groups meeting. And we had actually the founder of this process come here. How many of you remember that we used this process? Practices, principles, and good writing.
Okay, 3 principles. Leadership is rotating, responsibility is shared, center is held by reliance on wholeness. 3 practices. Listen with attention, speak with intention, contribute to the well-being of the group. When anybody is talking in our group, nobody can interrupt. It's very hard to do, but we practice this as hard as we can. Our 4 agreements are: stories are shared or confidential. We listen with compassion and curiosity, call on others for what we need and offer what we can. We take time to pause and reflect. We gather our thoughts and focus. What do we need to become as an evolving spiritual community?
We want one that consolidates and focuses our efforts through the vision of St. Francis to continue serving all creation. We picked 3 because we feel that we have so many independent projects and participation is in many very, very small. We would like to see a bigger group supporting each effort. So we picked social justice, the arts, and spirituality, which we just mentioned, the meditation, the contemplation, reflection, and prayer.
What do we need to release?
Fear, which is face everything and run. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. And frog, for
summation.
The daily word tells us that peace depends on us to put its art into action through sanity, maturity, and common sense in relationships. This yields open-mindedness, warmth, and we reach out and draw us together in understanding and love. Are we good? That's it? All right.
We have extra copies if anybody would like one.
And
right over there.
say to yourselves the prayer for peace, because that's what we believe in.
Thank you.
My name is Wendy Kreider, and my vision for the Methodist Church is that the Greater Methodist Church be very much as I found here at St. Francis in the Foothills when I first walked in 1994. It was a very diverse group of people, more so than now actually, because there were many more people in their 30s and under. Okay, and I would see a young man in high heels and a dress. And I would see people who obviously were very different than the norm, but having come from San Francisco, for me, that was nothing unusual. But everybody here accepted everybody. There was no, oh gosh, look at that, none of that. Everyone was accepted for who they were. And I found that refreshing after many of the churches I had been in previous to finding St. Francis in the Foothills. To me, through his words and his actions, Christ, let me back up. Through the actions of Christ, who used the Samaritan, the most despised and hated person at that time in that area, to show us what God expected of us when we treat other people. The fact that he associated with those who, as a good Jewish man, he was not supposed to associate with: the tax collector, the centurion, the prostitute, and so on. It tells me that God, through the words and actions of Christ, loves everybody. And that's what I wish that the Greater Methodist Church would come to realize and act out. Also, to follow Wesley, because Wesley emulated a lot of Christ in his social justice actions. Under Wesley's leadership, the Methodist Church helped to do away with slavery. It ended child labor. It created the National Health Service so that everybody had access to medical help. I would love to see the spirituality that was often brought up from the pulpit when I first joined this church. So very much I would like to see the Greater Methodist Church modeled on this one, because I think we are, this is my opinion, we are far closer to walking the walk and talking the talk as modeled by Christ than many of the churches I've been in, where many of the people that I have seen in this church, as I traveled around when I lived in my motorhome, would have been shown the door and others and maybe helped out of it. So this church is a model for what I would like to see for the Greater Methodist Church. That's my vision. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pam Simon, and I was very honored to be asked to speak about what my vision was. And in thinking about the vision for where our church is going, our broader church, I could think of no better place to start than our speaker last week, J.J. Warren, when he told about walking up to the microphone at General Conference. And I can't imagine what a terrifying feeling that must have been. But he said that he thought all the way, what does the Lord require of me? What does God require of me in this moment? And so I think the question really for when we're thinking about vision is, what does the Lord require of us? All of us, those of us in the church body. What does God require of us in this moment, in this time, in this period of history that we live in? So the answer is pretty clear. We are to take care of one another. We are to treat each other as our neighbor. We are to love one another. That's the basic truth that we have, that all churches aspire to. So how are we going to live that out? So it's been said by several people, many of us were drawn to this particular church because of how, as Wendy said, we walk the walk. There are many social justice issues of this time, and St. Francis really touches on many of those, taking care of each other. St. Francis responded to the social justice problems of our time. So the founder of the Methodist Church, as Wendy just said, the problems in his time were slavery in England, the sanitation problems in London, the fact that little children were down in the mines in Wales all week and weren't learning to read and write. And so the answer was Sunday school. And so he responded to the problems of his time. An issue confronting us at this time is what we're lifting up today by wearing orange. And I can't tell you how affirming it is to see this orange across our congregation. And what we are saying by wearing orange is that we want to be a voice against the gun violence in this country, which is truly a problem for this time. And in this group, there are, Linda is a warrior with the Moms Demand Action. Cynthia has made clerical skulls for so many ministers across the country that many of you have been very, very involved. And all of you, when we take our picture after this service, be sure and stay so we can take a picture, and it's going to be posted along with faith communities all over the country. And our wearing orange is our way of stating that we are in support of gun violence prevention. Most of you know that this issue hit me rather directly on January 8th, 2011, in the arm and in the chest. And I was on the staff of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, and I was at Congress on your corner that day. Actually, I a lot of times say that working on gun violence prevention is my Jonah and the whale issue, because not only was I not particularly interested in it, I was afraid of it. This was not something that I wanted to touch at all. But in the last 8 years, I have had the privilege of meeting survivors of gun violence all over the country. Absolutely excruciatingly heartbreaking stories. I sat at lunch with a mother who had lost all of her children to gun violence in Chicago. I have been so incredibly inspired by the resilience of people in the face of devastating loss. They still share their story in order to make a change. So I have also seen faith leaders take brave stands, even when their congregations caution them not to, but to speak out. And in one case, a very brave conservative minister lost his congregation, but he felt it was so important. Our rate of gun death in this country, as you can see on the slide, is a devastating 25 times higher than any other developed nation. This is truly an epidemic. 40,000 people a year died as a result of a gun wound, and that is suicide, homicide, and accidental. That's a city's worth of people. Over 200,000 people a year are wounded. Most are not as lucky as me, who, thanks to wonderful medical care and lots of prayers by you, I'm standing here. Some are like Gabby, who will struggle for the rest of her life finding words that used to come so easily. Some will be like my friend whose son went to a birthday party and a bullet came through the wall, and and struck him in the head, and he will spend the rest of his life in a nursing home. Those are some of the 200,000 wounded. And the ripple effect of the friends and family of those affected is the millions, in the millions. So this is an issue of our time. Gun violence can be reduced. And I'm going beyond the vision because today is Gun Violence Awareness Sunday. But we need to move. What we can do, we can reduce gun violence. The problem of our time. And I think if John Wesley were here, he would say, this is the problem of your time and you need to get busy. We need to move the hearts, the minds, the votes of many of our elected officials. And we need to move some of our elected officials. Reverend Susan Henry Crowe, who's the executive of the United Methodist Church and Society, had this to say, and I put it in the newsletter, so some of you may have read it. Christ calls us to be peacemakers, which is why, along with our prayers, we must work to end gun violence. To do nothing is to be complicit in this seemingly endless terror gripping our communities. And if any of you are parents or grandparents, you know that it is terror as we send our children off to school. I'm going to ask each of you to take single action tomorrow so you won't be complicit. And that is, would you call each of our senators, Senator Sinema and Senator McSally, call their offices and ask them to support background checks on all gun purchases. It's a first step. There are many social justice issues of our time, just as there were in the first days of Methodism. So my vision for our church, our broader church, whether it's next year, 20 years from now, or 100 years from now, that we will still be a body of people that respond to Christ's teachings, to love one another, to take care of one another, and to work for social justice. Can I get an amen? Amen.
Thank you, Pam, for bringing us that awareness and the call to action. My name is Scott Blades. Have you ever felt excluded, minimized, marginalized? Had other people make decisions about you, your worth, your role, without knowing you or anything about you? Have people tell you how you should feel, that you should wait to get your full rights and equality? Tell you that things are better than they used to be, so just be quiet and put up with it a little while longer. I remember being a kid and knowing at a very young age that I was different. And I wasn't supposed to talk about it. I didn't know what that difference was, what it meant to be attracted to people of the same gender. But I got the message very early that it was wrong, that something was wrong with me. I prayed to be changed. It didn't work. Somehow, though, I didn't become one of those statistics, one of those horrifying statistics of gay kids who kill themselves because of depression based on lack of acceptance. As a gay kid growing up, somehow, despite my thoughts to kill myself, I didn't do it. But one thing I did kill, at least for a while, was my faith. I saw the hypocrisy of some Christians and their exclusion and judgment of people like me. So why on earth would I come to St. Francis, to a church, after that experience? I was having a midlife crisis in my 20s, a little early. I had left a long-term relationship of 7 years, quit my job, and was just seeking some support. I came to St. Francis not as a church, but as a space that had a support group for people who are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. And I met some amazing people at that support group. And soon I got the courage to branch out and step foot into a church on a Sunday morning. And I found caring, genuine people who weren't acting holier than thou and didn't pretend that they had all the answers. Just people seeking community, seeking to better themselves and help each other become better. I found a diverse and inclusive congregation Not just talking about the challenges that face us, but willing to take action to make things better. One of my very first Sundays here at St. Francis, a man stood up. We had sharing at that time, and a man stood up and said, "My name is Tim, and I have AIDS, and I need some help." And I didn't really know people around me, so I'm looking and saying, they seem really nice. But I know how this would go over in some congregations. So after the service was over, I went to meet Tim and offer whatever help I could provide. But there was a line of people waiting to talk to Tim. There were doctors and nurses in the congregation that wanted to make sure Tim was getting medical care. There were social workers that wanted to make sure he was connected to services. There were grandmothers that said, "I don't know anything about AIDS, but I can bring you a casserole so you're not hungry." And there were college kids that said, "If you just want somebody to hang out with you and somebody to sit with you and talk with, I can do that." That's when I knew I was at a place that could accept me and love me and care about me and care about my community. St. Francis's outreach to the LGBTQ community, that support group, and soon an AIDS ministry that would form, THON, the Tucson Interfaith HIV/AIDS Network, that's now commemorating 25 years of service and serving 1,000 people living in this country. St. Francis helped me find myself and discover how I could be of service. It's been a community that's nurtured me and helped me and so many other people learn about and provide tangible support to people in need in our community. But I'm torn. Sometimes I want to stay at St. Francis, and sometimes I want to leave. I love so many things about this church. Hearing those ancient stories and applying them to today's world, increasing my awareness of our neighbors and our planet, a strong outreach program that connects us to people and issues, especially people who are outcast and suffering, and helping us find ways to address those concerns. I love being part of a place that expands love, a place that treats everyone as worthy, and that explores systems and structures, especially as they relate to the church, that cause some to be treated as less than. I love so much about this church and its people, but our mother church, just reaffirmed that they believe that we are incompatible with Christian teaching. We remain in a family that continues to emotionally and spiritually abuse us. Us staying as part of this church for the sake of keeping the family together, that really just means that we're valuing the Methodist Church's structures and assets and history more than we're valuing our people. I get angry that we spend so much time fighting and resisting and dissenting and justifying our worthiness. So where do I want St. Francis to be? Depends on the day you ask me. Some days I'm so amazed and encouraged, like this display of so many people here and around the church, around the world, coming forward as LGBT and allies and making bold statements and taking action. That's amazing. But then I consider that LGBTQ kids who grow up in United Methodist and other church settings have a higher likelihood of suicide than kids who grow up in non-church settings. A study found recently that gay kids in churches are 38% more likely to have suicidal thoughts than gay kids that don't go to church. We gotta change that. We've changed it here at St. Francis. We dissent with our words and our actions, but maybe we should also think about dissenting with our money. It's going to be popular to some. Our apportionments, our dues, that we pay to the Greater United Methodist Church. Maybe we can seek to restrict our dues and what they will and will not support. Maybe we should proclaim that our conference funds or staff time will not be spent to investigate or punish people who violate the United Methodist Church's traditional plan that outlaws LGBT ordination or marriage ceremonies. Whether it's a day when I want to be part of the Methodist Church or a day when I want to separate from that church, one thing is always true. I would love to see us channel our energy into something positive instead of fighting for something so very basic. Thank you for that fight.